Okay, 14 to work together. All right, so our first step is journalizing some transactions. It looks like we have 5 transactions. It says that we're going to journalize the transactions for Olson Company in question assets that were completed during November and December of the current year. We're going to use page 15 of the general journal and page 24 of the cash receipts journal. So we're going to start with November 4th. It says that we wrote off Mellon Corporation's past due account as uncollectible, $494, memorandum 145. So what we're doing is we are assuming that we are not going to be collecting from Mellon Corporation. So this is where we're going to take money out of our allowance account, that money that we've set aside, and we are going to then write off, we're going to cancel the amount that Mellon Corporation owes us. So that's going to go to my general journal. I'm going to start with my date of November 4th. If I need a reminder of my chart of accounts, of my account names, I can look in here. I am going to my allowance for uncollectible account. It is memorandum 145. And we are going to debit that for $494. Okay, and then I'm going to credit that accounts receivable. So accounts receivable, I'm going to get rid of the balance that they owe us. Now here we're going to credit 2 accounts, accounts receivable and Mellon Corporation. Okay, so now let's look at our next transaction, November 15th. It says that we wrote off Horn Company's past due account as uncollectible, 1548, memorandum 147. So this is going to be just like what we did on November 4th. I'm gonna put in the date. I'm in the general journal, so the 15th. I'm taking money out of my allowance account, so I'm going to debit my allowance for uncollectible accounts. This is memorandum 147. I'm debiting that for 1,548. And then I'm going to credit accounts receivable slash Horn Company. And I'm going to credit those accounts for 1,548. Okay, so next we're moving on to December 8th. It says that we received cash in full payment of Mellon Corporation's account that was previously written off as uncollectible for $494, memorandum 158 and receipt number 341. So the hint that we're going to see is that we have 2 source documents here, the memorandum and the receipt. That tells us that we have 2 separate transactions or 2 things that we need to record. Okay, so before we can record actually receiving this cash, this is where we need to reopen Mellon Corporation's account. So first I'm going to go to the general journal, and I do need to put in December there because I'm changing months from November to December now. So December 8th. And what I'm going to do, I'm looking back at November 4th. November 4th is when we wrote off that account. I'm going to do the exact opposite now. I'm going to flip this transaction to reopen that account. So I'm going to debit accounts receivable, Mellon Corporation. And this is, I'm going to use the memorandum, so 158. I'm going to debit for 494. And then I'm going to credit, I'm going to put that money back into my allowance for uncollectible accounts. Okay, now the second part of that transaction is recording the actual cash. So now I'm going to scroll down to my cash receipts journal. The date is December 8th. I like to put in my cash debit first. So the amount of money that I'm receiving is $494. So that's my cash debit. And then I'm going to put in who I received that money from. I received it from Mellon Corporation. My document number that I'm going to use here is the receipt 341. And then that credit, make sure that you don't put it into the general credit because this Mellon Corporation is an accounts receivable. So it's going to go into that accounts receivable credit column. So 494. Okay, so now we're done with December 8th. Next one, December 14th. We wrote off Fisher Industries past due account as uncollectible, 1360, memorandum 161. So going back up to our general journal, the date is the 14th. And this is where I'm going to take money out of my allowance for uncollectibles. So I'm going to debit that account. I need to put in memorandum 161 and I'm debiting for 1,360. And then I'm going to credit accounts receivable / Fisher Industries. Now, one thing that I haven't talked about is that if we were doing this like paper pencil, we would be putting that slash in our post reference column. And that's just a reminder to us that when we're going to post, that we would be posting that credit twice, once to accounts receivable and once to Fisher Industries. On MindTap here, it doesn't allow us to put that slash in at this time. It will then once we get to our posting. Okay, last transaction then is December 16th. Says that we received cash in full payment of Horn Company's account, previously written off as uncollectible, 1548, memorandum 169, and receipt 349. So again, we see two source documents. That tells us that we have two parts to that transaction. So first, this account was written off, so first I need to reopen that account. So I'm actually going to kind of look at this 15th. November 15th. This is when we wrote off Horn Company, and now I'm going to reopen it. So I'm going to start with my date, and I'm flipping this transaction around. So I'm going to debit accounts receivable Horn Company. I'm using memorandum 169. And I'm debiting for 1,548, and then I'll credit allowance for uncollectible accounts. I'm putting that money back into that allowance account and credit 1,548. Now that I've reopened that account, now I'm going to record the cash that I received. So I'm going to go back down to my cash receipts journal. I'm going to put in my date of the 16th. Again, I'm going to go over to my cash debit first, and I'm going to put in the debit of 1,548. And then I'm going to come over here and put in who I received that from, Horn Company. Receipt 349. And remember, that's going to my accounts receivable credit column, 1,548. Okay, so that is done. I'm going to grade step 1. And next step. Okay, so step number 2 says that we're going to post our general journal entries and the cash receipts journal lines to the general ledger and the accounts receivable ledger. You will not need to make the entries to the item columns of the ledger. To me, I think that's a little disappointing that they don't have us write that in there. I'll talk about that when we get to those parts. Okay, so I'm going to just start first line of my general journal. I'm going to my allowance for uncollectible accounts. So I'm going to be scrolling down here. The date is November 4th. Post reference, I'm going to use G15 for general journal, page 15. And I'm debiting that account for $494. And then I'm going to need to find my new balance. So get out your calculator. My new balance then is going to be a credit balance of $2,664.47. Account number 1135 will go back up to my post reference column. Okay, next one, this is where I'm going to be posting this number twice, this credit. I'm going to post it once to accounts receivable and once to Mellon Corporation. So I'm going to start with my accounts receivable. The date is the 4th. General Journal, page 15, so G15, and I'm crediting for $494. I'm going to find my new balance. My new balance is $34,654.85. Account number 1130 will go back up. And after that account number, I'm going to put in that slash. And now I'm going to go post to Mellon Corporation. Now, when I click away from that, it'll turn red, but that's because I'm not completely done posting that account or that number yet. So my Mellon Corporation is my accounts receivable ledger. The date is the 4th, G15. I'm crediting for $494. And then here, now, if we were doing paper pencil, we would just draw a line through this. But since we're not, we're going to put a 0. The other thing, this is where they were talking about you will not need to make entries to the item columns. Now, when we would post this, because they did not actually pay us, and right now it looks like they paid us, we would be putting in here written off. So this is where, I'm a little disappointed that they don't have us actually put that in there because we should be writing written off. When we look at this right now, it looks like they paid us, and that is not the case. Okay, I'm going to bring my account number 130 though back up and put that in. Okay, next one, I'm going to my allowance for uncollectible accounts. Okay, so the 15th, G15, and 1548 is the debit. I'm going to find my new balance. My new balance then is $1,116.47. Account number 1135 goes back up. Okay, next I'm going to go to accounts receivable. The date is the 15th, G15. I'm crediting this account for $15.48. I get $33,106.85. Account number 1130 goes back up. I'm going to put that slash in there, and then I'm also going to post that credit to Horn Company. So the date is the 15th, post reference G15, a credit of $15.48, and that brings it to a 0 balance. Again, this is where we would write written off in here. Okay, I'm going to bring my account number 120 back up. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video here. I'm going to continue posting in the next video so you can watch the second video to complete the posting.